In the heart of a blinding snowstorm, an ambulance was forced to stop, not by the weather, but by a German shepherd standing silently in the middle of the road. He didn't bark, he didn't move, he only stared, and then turned as if asking to be followed. What they found buried in the snow behind him would break your heart and restore your faith all at once. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. We're about to begin a story you'll never forget. The sky had turned to ash over the Swan Mountains. Snow fell in thick, sideways sheets, driven by a wind that screamed like something ancient and angry. The town of Red Elk, a scattered settlement tucked along the northern edge of Montana's wilderness, had all but vanished beneath the storm. Power lines were down in 3 neighborhoods, and emergency services had rerouted most calls to a dispatch hub 60 miles away. But some cries still slipped through. Casey Rhodes gripped the steering wheel of her snow-dusted ambulance like it might disappear from under her hands. She was 33, lean and wiry, with sunken cheeks and a tired grace that looked permanent. Her skin bore the faint rosiness of old cold burns, and her hazel eyes rarely rested on any one thing for long, like her mind didn't trust stillness. She had once been radiant, family said. Before the fire, before her sister drowned and left behind only silence and Casey's guilt. These days she wore her trauma-like armor, practical parka, work boots, and a tone clipped just short of harsh. Beside her in the cab, Jeremy Parrish muttered into the dispatch radio. Jeremy was 41, round-shouldered, and slow to anger, with salt and pepper curls under his beanie and a voice made for calming storms. He had a teenage daughter and a habit of humming old country tunes under his breath. If Casey was the storm, Jeremy was the hearth, steady, warm. No follow-up yet, he said, frowning. Call came from somewhere up near Greystone Hollow. Dispatcher couldn't get a return, just coordinates Casey didn't respond. She hated vague calls. They whispered of things half-finished, hikers who never came back, frozen loners, people who didn't want to be found. She hated them most of all in the snow. The ambulance groaned around a bend, flanked by thick pine groves, headlights slicing through the white blur ahead. Then she saw it, a figure in the road. Casey lifted her foot from the pedal. It wasn't a snowbank. It wasn't a fallen tree. It was a dog, a large one. "Coyote?" Jeremy asked, leaning forward. "No," Casey said, her voice caught between breath and instinct. "That's a shepherd." The German shepherd stood squarely in their path, unmoving, its black and tan coat rimmed with frost. Its ears were high, alert, eyes focused. It didn't bark. It didn't flinch from the glare of the headlights. It just watched them with an eerie steadiness, as if it had been waiting. Jeremy rolled down the window, yelling, "Move, boy, get out of the road." But the dog didn't move, didn't twitch. Casey eased the ambulance to a full stop. Then she opened her door. "Casey, come on," Jeremy said, annoyed. "It's a stray." She didn't answer. The cold slapped her hard the moment she stepped out. Wind bit through her jacket and forced her to squint against the flurries, but she moved slowly toward the dog. It stepped back, not bolting, just retreating. Then it stopped. Its tail was low but not tucked. A whine escaped its throat, soft, purposeful. Casey took another step. The dog took one more backward. "Jeremy, grab a flashlight," she called. He groaned but followed, the beam sweeping snow and shadows between the trees. Together they stepped off the road, down a gentle slope of white powder, following paw prints and the silent figure ahead. The shepherd didn't gallop or dart. It paused often, turning its head to check they were close behind. $10, says this mutt's leading us to a dead rabbit," Jeremy muttered. But Casey didn't laugh. The dog stopped at a small clearing where the snow had sloped inward unnaturally, like the earth had exhaled and given in. The shepherd circled something half-submerged, letting out a low, urgent whine. Casey approached, eyes narrowing on what looked like a pile of old winter clothes crusted over in snow. Then something metallic caught the light. A carabiner. No, a snap. The edge of a baby carrier. She dropped to her knees. "Jeremy, help." Together they began digging. The snow was packed hard, crusted. Casey's fingers went numb fast, but she clawed until fabric gave way, a flash of pink, then a small hand. "Jesus!" Jeremy choked. Casey tore open the bundle. Inside, wrapped in what looked like an old army jacket, was a newborn. Her lips were tinged blue, but her chest rose just barely. "She's alive," Casey gasped. "She's alive. Jeremy, get the pediatric kit." As Jeremy sprinted back, Casey shed her jacket and wrapped it around the child's tiny body. Her breath trembled. The wind shrieked like it was trying to take the girl back. The shepherd sat quietly now, 10 feet away, unmoving, watching. "Who are you?" Casey whispered, cradling the baby against her chest. The dog did not respond, but there was something in his stillness, something almost sacred. Jeremy returned with gear and oxygen. "We warm her slowly," he said, voice tight. "Controlled, no shock." "She's coming back," Casey whispered, staring into that fragile little face as the snow swirled around them. They worked in silence, then bundled the baby and made for the ambulance. Casey didn't take her eyes off the child once. She held her like something the world had tried to erase. Back on the road, she glanced through the windshield. The shepherd was gone, not a track, not a sound, like he had never been there. The storm did not ease. By the time Casey and Jeremy reached the small medical outpost in Greystone Hollow, the ambulance had developed a coating of hard rime along its sides. The windows steamed from within, fogging the narrow corridor where Casey sat hunched, still clutching the tiny form wrapped in her parka. The newborn stirred once. No sound, just the faintest movement. A butterfly's breath beneath the layers of warmth and wool. Inside the clinic, the heater buzzed like a tired engine. The place was small, rural, kept alive by underfunding and volunteers. Dr. Ellen Wexley was already at the door when they burst in. She was a tall, spare woman of about 60, with crow's feet etched deep and graying curls pulled into a stern bun. Her frame was all bone and sharpness, but her voice had a softness that cut through chaos like balm. "Get her in here, now," Ellen said, motioning them toward the exam room. "Third infant in 2 months," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "And this one brought in by a ghost." Casey laid the baby down gently. "We don't know her name, no ID, no signs of anyone else nearby," Jeremy added. "She was buried out in the trees under the snow. Shepherd led us to her." Ellen's eyes narrowed. "A shepherd?" Casey nodded. "One that didn't flinch from a moving ambulance. One that waited." Dr. Wexley said nothing more. She moved like a woman born to triage, clean, deliberate, precise. The baby's temperature was dangerously low, but not beyond hope. Casey assisted silently, her hands steady, even as her heart thudded from the aftershock. When the baby was finally stabilized in a heated bassinet, Casey stepped out into the hallway, peeled off her gloves, and leaned against the wall. Her mind replayed the sound of the dog's breath in the snow. That faint whine, like it had been pleading, not for itself, for the child. Casey looked up. A man in a long green parka with snow crusted into his beard was approaching. His name tag read, Deputy Colin Barrett, mid-30s, broad-shouldered. He had the kind of jaw that looked like it had been broken and healed wrong, and eyes that stayed cautious even when his voice was calm. "I'm with the county," he said. "Got a report from dispatch. No missing child filed. No incident matching what you found. Any tracks?" "No," Casey replied. "Just the dog. No footprints, no tire marks. Like the snow buried everything." Colin frowned. "That's the third weird rescue call this winter. You heard about the kid that turned up outside the ranger station in Bozeman. Said a snow dog brought him. No one could confirm anything." "Same kind of dog?" Casey asked. Colin shrugged. "No one saw it. But if it is the same one, sounds like you met a myth." Casey wasn't interested in stories. She was interested in facts. She asked, "What about the mother? We have to notify child services." "I've already contacted them," Colin said, "and we're cross-referencing local hospitals for recent births. But unless someone reports her missing—" He let the silence finish the sentence. Casey walked back to the exam room. The baby, cleaned now, was no longer blue. Her skin had taken on a pale pink glow. Her eyes fluttered beneath closed lids. Dr. Wexley said, "You were right on time. Any later?" She didn't finish. Casey turned to leave, but stopped. Could she have been out there all night? Ellen looked up. Not without that dog, no way. Whatever it was, it saved her life. Jeremy joined them in the hallway, brushing snow from his sleeves. "Tell me you got a name for her." "Just one thing," Casey said. "On her wrist. A baby bracelet. It had a name, June." They were silent a moment. Jeremy whispered, "Little June in the snow." "Yes," Casey said, her eyes glancing over the rim of her glasses. Laura studied her for a moment. "And you named her?" "I didn't name her. She had a bracelet. It said June." Laura made a note. "We traced a pediatric visit. Baby June Monroe. Born 7 weeks ago in Missoula. No father listed. Mother's name, Kelsey Monroe." Casey's heart lurched. "Has she been located?" "She filed a missing child report 2 days ago. Said she'd left the baby with a friend for the afternoon. Came home to an empty crib. No signs of forced entry. The sitter's car was gone. Her name's Trish Warren." Jeremy, who had just walked in carrying 2 mugs of coffee, overheard. "Wait, Warren? That the woman they found in the wreck on Highway 12? Laura nodded. "Car hit black ice. Went off the road. She was ejected. Deceased at the scene." "What about June?" Casey asked, her voice barely holding. "Restraint seat wasn't in the vehicle. Troopers think it was thrown during the crash. They found stroller wheel marks leading downhill, far from the wreck. Must have rolled before the snow buried it." Jeremy swore under his breath. Casey turned to Laura. "So no one left her in the woods on purpose?" "No," Laura said, her tone softening. "But no one found her either, except the dog." That night, Casey drove out of town, past the clinic, the gas station, the frozen fields that pressed into the timberline. Ivy Lang sat in the passenger seat, arms folded, eyes scanning the dark as if she could read it. "You really think he's going back there?" Ivy asked. Casey nodded. "Samuel said the Ridge Fire line, said he saw prints again this morning." "Dogs don't go back to trauma unless they're searching for meaning," Ivy said. "But Koda was trained to run toward pain, not away from it." The road narrowed to gravel, then disappeared under a canopy of ice-laced pines. Casey parked and killed the engine. The only sounds were the crunch of snow beneath their boots and the far-off yip of coyotes. They hiked in silence, breath fogging the cold, each step drawing them closer to the charred remains of the fire zone. They passed the ghost of a fire tower, its base scorched and skeletal. Ivy stopped, knelt by a blackened trunk. "Here," she whispered. Paw prints, large, singular, pressed into the frost in a perfect line. Beside them, fainter, almost misted prints of a second kind, barefoot, tiny. Casey knelt. "These aren't new. Snow falls too light here, sheltered by the trees." "They could be days old," Ivy murmured. "What does it mean?" Ivy stood slowly. "He brought her here first, before the road, before you found them." Casey blinked. "He dragged her through the woods?" "No," Ivy said, her voice low. "He carried her." They moved forward, following the paw prints through the trees. 10 minutes later, they reached a clearing. In the center stood the remains of a fire circle, old ash, half buried under snow, a scorched photo frame lying crooked in the dirt. Inside, though damp and curled, was a picture. A young man in firefighting gear, one arm slung around a German shepherd. The smile on his face was wide, earnest, unguarded. Casey lifted the frame. "Travis Holt," Ivy said. "He brought her back to where he lost him, like an offering, or a promise kept." Behind them, a branch snapped. They turned. Koda stood at the edge of the clearing, silent as ever, watching. Up close, he looked older, his coat rough with thorns and burrs, his eyes clouded faintly with age. But his posture still held the discipline of training long burned into muscle. He didn't growl. He didn't run. Casey took a slow step forward. "Koda," she said. He blinked. "You found her," she whispered. "You stayed with her." She knelt. Koda stepped forward, not to Ivy, not to the photo, but to the frame in Casey's hand. Gently, he rested his nose on it. Then He lay down in the snow. The next morning at the clinic, June's mother arrived. Kelsey Monroe was young, maybe 24, with limp blonde hair pulled into a messy bun and a faded coat 2 sizes too big. Her face bore the remnants of sleepless nights and something far older than her years. Grief folded into every blink. When she stepped into the room and saw June in the bassinet, she broke. Not with a scream, but with a collapse, as if her legs gave way under the weight of all the days she thought her child had died. She kissed the baby's forehead, whispering her name over and over. June, June. Oh, baby. Casey stood at the door and said nothing. She didn't need to. Koda waited outside near the sidewalk, unmoving. When Kelsey finally stepped out, tears still on her cheeks, the dog lifted his head. Their eyes met. He stood, walked to her. She froze. Then slowly, trembling, she extended her hand. Koda sniffed once, then sat. A silence fell over them, long, full, perfect. He knew, Kelsey whispered. He knew she was mine. Casey exhaled for the first time in hours. Later, she found herself wondering if it was fate or something deeper, some thread of memory and loyalty that even death couldn't fray. Koda had lost his partner, but not his mission. And when the world forgot his name, he remembered his purpose. Winter lingered in Red Elk. The snowfall had ended days ago, but the cold clung, like a breath refusing to exhale. Beneath the hush of frost-bitten hills, time moved not in hours, but in memory. Casey sat by the clinic window as the sky turned a pale amber behind the Swan Range. In the next room, June's soft babbles echoed faintly, the sound of new life weaving its thread into a tapestry of sorrow and survival. Koda lay curled beneath the window bench, unmoving except for the occasional twitch of an ear. He hadn't left June's side since the reunion, not when the mother arrived, not when the press came knocking, not even when Lara Blow offered to place him in a local shelter. "He's not going anywhere," Casey had said then, her voice low but steady. But now she found herself at a crossroads. Koda had no official owner, no clear place to return. And though her home was small and her grief still thick, something inside her, some unlit corner, had begun to stir with the question, could she keep him? She hadn't said it aloud yet, not to Jeremy, not to Ivy, not even to herself. That afternoon, Casey returned to the fire station where Travis Holt had once worked. She brought Koda with her, though the dog walked slowly now, a faint limp still in his rear leg. His age showed more in daylight, grizzled fur, cloudy eyes, but nothing about him seemed diminished. If anything, the way he scanned every room before entering, paused at thresholds, kept his flank to the wall. Those were habits formed in fire and never forgotten. Station 9 was a weather-worn building of steel and cinder block trimmed with red paint that had faded to rust. Inside it smelled of ash, coffee, and old oil. Firemen moved through the halls with the casual rhythm of familiarity. Radio chatter low, boots heavy, banter light. A man emerged from the back office, late 50s, close-cropped hair, denim shirt tucked into fireproof trousers. He had the shoulders of a younger man, but a limp that matched Koda's in rhythm. His name was Captain Neil Bram. His face froze when he saw the dog. "Well, I'll be damned," he murmured, crouching slowly. "Koda?" The dog walked forward, stopped a foot away, and sat. Casey waited. "He used to sit like that for Travis," Neil said. "Wouldn't come closer unless given the word." He stood again, emotion coiled tight behind his eyes. "You came to learn more?" he asked. "I came to see where Koda came from," she replied. Neil led her down a hallway to a storage room near the back, boxes stacked on high shelves, labeled with years and call signs. He pulled one marked Holt T.'s Ridge Unit. He opened it, laying out the contents gently. A badge, a burned helmet, training records, and a photograph of Travis with his arm looped around Koda, both staring straight into the lens with a look of mutual certainty. Koda was trained in rapid infant rescue, Neil explained, used to sleep beside the cribs during drills. Travis always said the dog knew the sound of a newborn crying before any human ear caught it. Casey looked at the file in silence. Then she said, "He brought June to the fire line, to where Travis died." Neil didn't look surprised. Dogs like him don't forget purpose. They don't understand death the way we do, just absence. And when purpose disappears, they wait for it to return. Casey stared down at the photo of the dog who now lay at her feet. For the first time in a long while, her heart didn't feel like a hollow place echoing with what she'd lost. It felt like something had returned. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.